All right, everybody. Get ready to get this started. Got a lot to get to. I want to take a minute and thank the sponsors. I want to thank Kenzies Optics, Taurus, Riton, and Crossbreed Holsters, of course. Can't thank those guys enough. I appreciate everything they do. We have so much to get to today. Questions and a million things in between. I'm going to just set up the YouTube and get the stream popped up and get to your questions and get to everybody's stuff. But I want to talk about a few things that I think everybody will find pretty interesting. And we'll get to them in about one quick second once I get YouTube fired up. Hopefully everybody's good. Take a minute to visit iTunes. Make sure you tap like and subscribe and leave a review. Make sure you take a minute to download on Podbean. If you have Podbean or you have access to Podbean, Podbean would be a great place to download if you don't have iTunes. Or maybe you just like it a lot better. So let's see here. We almost have the studio up. And we're gonna be live. Let's see. And we're live. And here everybody comes. What's up? What's up? What's good? So we're gonna get to questions. We have a shit ton to cover. Last night was absolutely mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. What's up, Derek? You missed a killer episode last night, Derek. What's up? Where's Froyo? Let's see. We're going to talk about Frozen 2. Frozen 2. So I was screwing around on YouTube, and yeah, Suresh was all in last night. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get to everything, but I want to talk about Frozen 2 for a second. So Frozen 2, he's at home. Froyo's at home. Frozen 2, the trailer came out, and the fucking thing had like 10 million downloads. You know, who's downloading this thing? I thought it was like a kid's movie. I had no idea, that it had like this like cult following that it has. Pretty crazy. Abchick, do you want to talk about Arnold? You're going to Arnold, right? See if I can get the Abchick on. You want to talk Arnold? You're going to be at Arnold. Frozen 2 had 10 million downloads on YouTube. I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? You're not going to Arnold? Oh, well, we're streaming on YouTube. If you want to talk about working out, see if I can sneak her on, if she's willing. The obsession with Frozen 2. Pretty crazy. If you haven't checked out the Ab Chick, go check out the Ab Chick. Let's get her to talk. Let's get her to chime in. There she is.
It'd be super weird. I'm like doing cardio at the moment.
No. So you're not going to Arnold. So where can people find you? If you're not going to Arnold, what are people gonna do?
I don't know, man. I've had a lot of people complaining. They're like, "Where's Stephanie gonna be? Where's the Ab Chick?"
Right.
Like, I'm gonna be in Florida. It is my mother's birthday that weekend, and
so
yeah.
So I'm recording on my podcast, and I'm kind of streaming. You know, I want to ask you. You obviously have like this huge commitment to fitness, right? That goes without saying, and like you're super committed to getting to the gym. Everybody on my podcast and everybody on my lives always, you know, comments, you know, how they can get in the gym, and I've asked you for advice in the past. I mean, this is, you know, I've asked you for kind of how to, you know, stay focused, stay on the grind, and you grind it out. I mean, you put the time in. What advice would you give to some of these people that are just starting out or just thinking of getting into it, and they're kind of struggling, they don't know what to do? What's like your like step one advice for anybody that's like, I want to get in shape, but I don't know how?
I think the first thing to do is set up a goal. What is your goal? Is it to get big? Is it to shred down? Is it to have abs? Is it to, you know, you have to kind of start with the fundamentals of that. Two, you know, like, get a program that is made for you, like, you know, a training program, food, and everything else. If you can't afford it, that's okay. Everyone starts out somewhere. Like, I didn't start with a trainer. I started out with just going to the gym and just kind of playing around with everything. And changing up my diet was the biggest thing. Just taking out, like, caloric, like, sodas and things like that, like milk and, you know, like anything that had calories and you could drink. That was like the first thing to do. And then just kind of switching into more things with like whole foods.
So if somebody's just getting started, what advice do you give them for a schedule? Because I know a lot of people hit me up and they're like, John, I can't go 5 days in a row. I can't go 6 days in a row. I can't go 7 days in a row. I always tell them the same thing. I'm always like, you know, I go 2 days a week. Start somewhere. You know what I mean? Start with something, you know, and that's always my biggest advice, is that consistency is the most important thing. And I think a lot of people, you know, they get overwhelmed with the whole start Monday, and, you know, they get kind of like by Wednesday they're dead. You know what I'm saying? Like they can't do it by Wednesday. So what advice do you give people when they're just starting out? Like, go 2 days a week, 1 day a week, just start simple, just go?
Yeah, honestly, like, just go and start out. I have clients that literally go just 3 times a week, and they still see, like, great results. So, you know, it's all about just making an effort to go and getting it done. And then little by little, your stamina is going to start increasing, your conditioning is going to start increasing, and then you're going to be able to go ahead and, like, do more and have that motivation to do more.
Now, I mean, obviously you publish it, so it's okay if I call you by your name, right? I don't have to call you Ab Chick.
Yes.
So,
you can call me Stephanie. Please call me Stephanie.
so you got kind of shot out of a cannon on social media, and I know this is like a little impromptu, but you know, what's that like? Like, what's you know, what has been some of the interesting things, you know, like kind of dealing with just being this face now? Because I know I've been through it, you know, now that people are coming to you for not just advice, but they're scrutinizing every little thing that you do, which I'm sure you're dealing with. How is that? Like, how has that been on you?
It's been fine. I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, so, like, I've had my experiences of how to deal with certain people, and, you know, if they have issues with something that I give them or something that I say, then, you know, I kind of, like, point them to the direction of where I got the information from or where the research lies. And sometimes I am wrong with things that I say or whatever else. And, you know, then I go back in and I say, okay, crap, guys, like, listen, I was wrong about saying this. Here's the real details and the real, like, science behind what it's all about.
Right. No, I totally get it. And, you know, I totally understand, but it's not easy, you know, once you start putting yourself out there and you hit, you know, 50,000 followers, 30,000 followers, and then, like, I know you're approaching 100, you know, people start to scrutinize every little thing that you do. Oh, why did you take your dog out at that time? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? It's like every little thing gets, like, hyper scrutinized in your life, and you're kind of like, just leave me the fuck alone sometimes. Like, you know, I mean, how do you balance it? Do you ever turn it off? Like, are you getting screamed at, you know, when you're at the dinner table? You know?
No. I mean, I've been lucky enough. I guess I just take things and put it in, like, sometimes sometimes you have to read things a different way. So the other day, like I had a girl ask me, like, why do I do so much cardio? Like 45 minutes of cardio is so much. What do you do that much cardio?
Mm-hmm.
And I went on a whole rant about it. And I was like, like, this is what I personally have to do to be able to get to the goal that I want to get to. And, 20 minutes of cardio, 10 minutes of cardio, and 30,000 calories may work for somebody. It does not work for me. So it's all about the individual, and it might not work for you either. So,
Oh,
you
yeah.
have to take it and say,
everybody looks for advice, myself included, and I've trained all over with everybody there is to train with, and, I've had a great ride in fitness, and I see people like you coming up. I see Maddie Forberg I'm friends with. I'm friends with a lot of different folks out there that I see. Cody Montgomery, obviously, is a really good friend of mine. And I'm super excited to see kind of this young crop of people coming up. And, I'm like so old school that I tell people all the time, I felt like I made it in fitness when I signed my deal with Gasp. And Gasp today is like, people are like, oh, no, Gymshark's better, or this is better, or that's better. But I'm like, I'm so old that that was like I felt like I made it because I grew up watching Branch and Johnny and all those guys and Dorian, and then that was kind of my time. But I'm excited to see all these younger folks coming up like you, and the dedication and just the heart and putting in the work, and you just can't escape putting in the work and just the mindset day in and day out of getting in there. It's amazing.
It's like if you want it, you have to fight for it. Like, you can't just look up to somebody next to you and say, oh, well, this person made it, and they're doing half the work that I'm doing. Well, you don't know what they're taking, one.
Mm-hmm.
Two, you don't know what they're actually doing, because a lot of people say they're doing stuff when they're really not. And three, everyone, once again, is different. They might actually have the genetics to allow them to do that.
Well, I'm super bummed you won't be at Arnold. I may be there. I'm like 70% there right now. A lot of companies are kind of backing away from Arnold. They're not doing the shows like they used to, so the shows are kind of like suffering, I guess. You're not seeing the same. Like, I know Gasp doesn't do it. A lot of companies don't do the shows. I know Blackstone still does it. PJ still does it, but a lot of companies have backed off from shows. Shows just aren't what they used to be. I know you went to
social media now. So.
Yeah, it's all on social now, and that's something we were talking about actually last night. How you can grow your social media. What do you feel has been your biggest, and I'll ask you this one more question, what do you feel has been your biggest growth factor on social media? Do you feel like it's being real, it's putting yourself out there, it's just showing the dedication? What do you feel has, what advice would you give people as what's been your biggest growth factor?
I think it's the authenticity for sure. So just putting myself out there and showing the raw, and when I cry and stuff, people.
Oh, I've seen it, yeah.
People either like it or don't like it, and they still follow me either way. So it's
yeah.
It is what it is. But I think that's, a lot of people I had one of my previous clients that she actually didn't stick to the program, but she, it was a couple months ago, but then she started it up again on her own, with what she had, and she DM'd me today. She's like, man, Stephanie, I wish I would have stuck with your program. It takes a lot to do what you do. Every time that I see, I saw you before, I should think that you're just ruining your body and taking to the extremes where your body shouldn't go. But now that I'm actually doing it right, I can see that it's not that way. It's what's it called? You're actually putting in the work, and it's people don't understand how far you can actually take your body.
I would say the biggest things that people don't understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, people don't understand how important diet is. That's something I try to explain to people. The diet's more important than the workout. Would you agree or disagree?
I'll give it half and half. I feel like you still need the workout, you still need your cardio. But yeah, diet is definitely important. And sometimes I don't even like to call it a diet. It's just more of a lifestyle. And I know it sounds so cliche and so, but to be honest, if you just start making those little changes, take out the Pop-Tarts out of your fridge, out of your faucet or whatever, and put in grapes, or put in oranges, or put in something else. Just make that change. Then you're gonna go into a better direction.
A couple more questions. What
Yeah.
What's your biggest downfall food-wise?
Food-wise.
Like
Maybe peanut butter?
Come on. Every girl says peanut butter. Give me something better, like lasagna, pizza.
I actually don't like pizza. I haven't had pizza, I'll tell you, in the last 6 months. Like, I just don't care for it. Barbecue, froyo. But the thing is, like, if you tell me, like, don't eat this stuff, like, I won't eat it. Because, like, I think for me, it's more of a mental game than anything else. So, like, I don't know. Like, I used to love ice cream. I don't really care for it anymore. Like, but if you tell me, oh, you like froyo. Froyo's good for you. I'm like, oh, yeah, froyo's great. Like, it's more of a mental thing that I kind of, like, put side by side. Like, good and bad. I know it's not, like, I know a lot of people tell you not to do that, but that's what I do. And it helps me just be like, oh, okay, like, these rice cakes, oh, they're the best things ever. Like, I'm on.
Now, you recently moved, I know that, and I wish you well in the new location. What do you think? Obviously, you know I'm a huge gun guy. What do you think of living in California versus Florida now? How's that?
I'm going to guess California doesn't allow you to have guns here?
Pretty much not at all.
They suck here.
Mm-hmm. It's like communist.
You can put it that way. Honestly, like, it's okay. Like, I think, like, I like it here for the gents and stuff, the mountains and everything else, but people in Florida, in the South, are just so much nicer. Like, you get that hospitality, and everyone's so great and so nice, and it's just different.
Right.
In that sense.
No, I have huge relationships in Florida, and I have a lot of friends down there, and I may end up down there myself at some point. You know, there's no question Florida offers a certain degree of hospitality. I mean, granted, you have like the Miami area, you know, the Orlando area is busy, Jacksonville, but you have a lot of great pockets in Florida, and there's so much cool stuff. It's such a melting pot. Like for me, who, you know, I do jiu-jitsu, I do a lot of different things. It's really cool to have that, those outlets, and there's tons of them available to you in Florida. Not that there's not that in Cali. In Cali, you're kind of at the mecca, at the tipping point of fitness. So, you know, you've trained at Venice. I've trained there. You've had the opportunity to kind of go to all these cool places, and now you're hiking in all these cool places. So the scenery you can't beat, you know, where you are now, and that's awesome. But you know, the whole anti-gun thing is a little bit of a killer for me. So that rules it out.
I bet. I haven't dabbled into the guns yet. I definitely want to. Whenever I'm back in Florida, I was telling my dad that he needs to take me to like a gun range. So
I built a bunch of guns for PJ. So if you ever get over there again, you know, I built him a bunch of his guns. So you'll have to shoot with him. But yeah. So it's great talking to you, and awesome having you on and just getting some of your insights for a few minutes while you're on the stepper. I assume you're on the stepper. But
I am, and thank you for making my time go so much faster. 26 minutes now. Okay.
So I'll let you go. It was awesome having you on. If any of the listeners or anybody out there on YouTube or on iTunes gets the opportunity, head over to the AbChicks page. Head over to her website too and check it out. She offers all kinds of training, all kinds of services. So don't hesitate to check her out. She's getting really close to 100,000. So if you get an opportunity, give her some follows and check her out. And she's the real deal. She's putting in the time. She's putting in the effort. And I appreciate you coming on and saying hi.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. I'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye. There you have it. The ab chick. So that kind of answers one of my questions, because I get a lot of questions about fitness, and I get hit up all the time about fitness, and, you know, kind of people always want to ask me about, you know, stuff on, you know, training and what's good to do and what's not good to do. I'm not a trainer. I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the insights. There's a lot of good resources out there. Stephanie is, you know, she's has worked with Blackstone and dabbled with a few brands that I've been affiliated with through the years. So she's really good. She's the real deal. I admire the shit out of her work ethic, and I love seeing that type of stuff. So, check her out. Give her a follow. Give her some air cover. She definitely is on the game. She's on top of it. And she's always kind of in the gym, grinding, putting the time in, putting the effort in. So that's super commendable. Can't thank her enough for stopping in and saying hi. And it's interesting seeing how she's moved from, Florida to Cali. And it's great to see, somebody making a run at it. I really appreciate her hard work and the time she's putting in. Thanks, Steph, for coming on. And hopefully everybody got something out of that, because I do get a lot of questions about fitness all the time, and that kind of checks one box on the questions that I've been getting. So I want to get to, I was talking earlier about Frozen 2. So Frozen 2 has something like 10 million downloads on YouTube of the trailer, and I'm like, in my head, I'm saying, like, who's watching this? So it's kind of crazy. So if you have any, I always like to see what's trending, but it blows my mind, that stuff, sometimes that like, who the hell is downloading this thing? But apparently it's a thing. I had no idea how big, but apparently it's a thing. So, hey, we are going to get to some giveaways and some stuff like that. Hopefully everybody last night got something out of the talk last night. I mean, that was amazing last night. I don't know who was in last night, but it went bonkers. It went bonkers. We had Bravo Concealment on. We had, Suresh stop by from 221B. And we got into talking about media, and you just heard it from Steph. There's just not a lot of meat on the bone anymore with some of these shows and some of this stuff. And, I just see companies making, not just companies, but people too, making monumental mistakes. It's crazy. It's crazy. But hopefully everybody got something out of that last night. Hopefully everybody took something away. I really hope so. Valuable information, Cassie. Valuable information. So last night, we got into a debate, and I do want to get to McDonald's and donut sticks. I want to get there, because McDonald's has donut sticks now. But it's crazy. It's crazy. Last night was full of so much valuable information. I can't really wrap my head around it, but it got me thinking. It got my brain going. And it's crazy. It's crazy to see how much and how invested people are in singular platforms and not really looking at the bigger picture and not seeing the bigger picture with some of the ways they not only market themselves, but brands and companies, how they market. But it's definitely an eye-opener, and it should be an eye-opener to a lot of people. So hopefully it was. Does anyone have any follow-up questions from last night? Because I got a couple DMs, and I'm going to answer them. And if you do, ask. I know Cassie said last night was full of valuable info to succeed. It's not so much about success, Cassie, as it is about common sense. And I had the conversation with a few executives in the firearms business and a few executives in the car business and a few other areas where I kind of have a hand in. And we've talked a lot about, I've got to get back and write down the 5 things Suresh named off. Yeah. We talked about a few of the things, and Suresh may be able to pop on. We talked about a few of the things, and it was, I got messages. So one question I got asked that was pretty common is, how I got to this point in my thought process. And I got here by just looking at, Tim from Military Arms Channel said something once. He said, I don't go to SHOT Show. There's just not a lot of value in it for me. I don't drink beer, and I don't, do this and I don't do that. And Suresh kind of hearkened the same thing. And maybe it was Renee, but I think that a lot of people don't realize that a lot of those platforms and a lot of those mediums are dying. Now, there's good and there's bad that comes with it. I think people need more human interaction. They need more human involvement. They need to talk to people. They need to face people. They need to be in real life. But I also believe that platforms like Instagram that are so quick and so speedy that there's just not a lot of legs in that space. And I think that, people look beyond singular platforms, and that's where I think companies make huge mistakes, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in branding, whether it's just in how they approach the way they market, the way they brand. Because I said it last night, I sit with so many companies, and I don't get into naming them. And some of them, you talk to them and they're 4 steps behind. They're 4 steps behind. And you just sit there and you're like, you're already behind. I said it last night. I sat with a brand that was just starting to figure out IG. And it moves so quick today that I was like, you're already behind the 8 ball. I'm talking about all these different things. So it's crazy. And I got a lot of, I got a lot of, I don't want to say, messages, but I got a couple of people that were like, you mentioned, Vortex versus Leopold and so on and so forth. It's just, guys, they're winning the war. They're winning. They're winning. And if you don't see it, you're blind. They're winning. They're winning now. It's crazy, but they are. They're winning. And if you think otherwise, you're losing your mind. I'm telling you. So it's really important. It's really important that as a consumer and as somebody that is out there and you're clicking like and you're following and you're doing all these things, and I know Cassie knows what I'm talking about, a few people in here know what I'm talking about, you pay attention to what you're liking and what you're following and what you're giving your attention to and what you're giving your time to. And don't allow those I don't want to say crappy, but don't allow just anything to come into your headspace. Don't allow it. Support the right things. Support the right people. Stay there in your mental headspace. Stay there. Don't get caught up with all those other things. Don't get caught up with, distractions and things that just occupy your headspace and aren't fruitful. If it's not going to give you a good return for your time, Knox, talking about that, they do give you more. And I study these things at 1,000 feet. I'm a macro guy. So I stand at 1,000 feet and I look at these things. And I look at who's doing it and who's doing it right. And who's building. And who's building in the right spaces. And I try to use data. Actual, real data. And I back into the data. And I look at the data and I say, okay, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. This is crazy. This isn't crazy. But you have to skate to where the puck is going. And that's what I talked about a lot last night. You know, I talked about it at length. A lot of people, felt it was really good. They got a lot from it. And I hope that everybody understands where I'm coming from. Like I said, I don't talk about brands specifically. I don't begrudge any brands that don't see it the way I see it. But I had a very notable holster manufacturer on here last night. I'd argue he's one of the top 5 out there. And he laid it out. He laid it out. And I think he's winning because of the way he's putting it out there. You know, and I think about guys like Andy Frisilla at First Form. And I think about people that are getting into all these spaces. And yeah, you're absolutely right, Knox. There's a lot of companies playing catch-up. There's a lot of catch-up. And when you sit with them, it's so glaring how far behind they are. And I walk out of these meetings and I'm so quick to say, I'll look at Tony, or we'll sit in a meeting together, or we'll sit, with a company, or I'll sit with a company with a few guys. A few of the guys always ask me to sit in, and they'll ask my advice after. And I'll say, I'm like, they don't get it. Or this one gets it. Or that one does it. But I said this to a company today. Thank you for tapping the hearts, by the way. I said this to a company today. I said, we live in an era where the number 1 podcast, and probably number 1 in views, Joe Rogan, is a show where they get high right on the show. They get high right on the show. We're in a whole different era. We're in a whole different space. We are not in a space to play it as safe as some people want to play it, to play it as bland as some people want to play it. And we're in an era where a CEO, not sure he's even still the CEO of Tesla, gets high, and the stock ultimately went up. It went down at first, and then it goes up. We're in a whole different space, people. We're in a whole different space. Now, I'm not saying that's the tack to take. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that's for every company. Certainly not saying that. But I'm just trying to open people's eyes up a little bit to the fact that we are in a different era. We're in a different space. And some people are going to get that, and some people aren't. Now, when you sit with some of these suits and some of these people that, I get it. I totally get it. They want to play it ultra careful. They're just figuring out Instagram, and they're sorting that out, and Instagram blows their mind. They're like, it's like social media. But man alive, it's a whole different era. It is a whole different era. But I challenge everybody who pays attention to all this stuff. You got to be careful who you follow. You got to be careful what you like. You got to be careful who you support. You got to be careful, how you get behind things. But we are in a whole new era. What's up, Action Targets? We are in a whole different era of marketing. We are in a whole different era of the way business is done, especially in the firearms business. Especially in the firearms business. So it is no doubt a whole brave new world. No doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt. No doubt. And it's changing. And it's changing too fast for everybody. And people got to get on the train. People got to get on the train and embrace it. it's a whole new world. But I definitely last night with Renee was preaching, with some of the stuff that was coming down out of Suresh, all of it. It was eye-opening. And it should have been eye-opening for everybody, because I walked away and I took maybe 100 notes. Now, we'll come back to that. We have a major announcement. McDonald's is doing donut fries. I don't know how people feel about that. McDonald's always interests me because they always come out with some weird stuff. They're always coming out with weird things. But donut fries. Jumps. Yeah, Semi-Auto Kid, I'm curious to know, people's thoughts. Yeah, Suresh is a very educated person. He's very smart. He's a better businessman than most people really will probably understand. I think they'll get to understand, but he's a really good businessman. And he gets it. Man, does he get it. He gets it. And he understands that the evolution of media, he understands that media is evolving. It's changing. It's changing faster than even sometimes he can, grab onto. And it's moving quick. It's moving really quick. And companies that are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure it out. I don't know if they will, but they're trying. They're trying to sort it out. He's very eloquent with his words he chooses. Yes, he takes his time. He takes his time. He lays it out. He definitely lays it out. He gets it. He gets it. A little long cut there. No long cut. I'm on there's no long cut, Caldy. I'm doing the coffee. I've been doing the coffee. So the coffee kind of perks me up. It's what I prefer. So sticking to the coffee. But hopefully everybody understands what I'm saying and the place I'm coming from. It is super, super exciting how fast it's all moving. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. A lot of work. Quitting. Not exactly something I wish on anybody. Quitting is a pain in the ass. Pain in the ass. But if anyone's kicking a habit, it's a tough one to kick. So I wish anyone well trying to kick any habit, but this one's a tough one. So hopefully everyone's had the opportunity I want to thank everybody again. I want to thank everybody for downloading on Podbean. We passed 1,000 downloads. That was freaking awesome. I want to thank everybody for, taking the time to head over to iTunes and leave a review. I appreciate it. The more reviews, the merrier. That's awesome. Anybody who supports the podcast or supports the YouTube, especially the YouTube, all of it, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. I think that's absolutely awesome. We had Stephanie on, the ab chick, give us a little insight into fitness. We talked a little Frozen. Frozen 2. The amount of downloads Frozen 2 has. But that's the era we're in. It's crazy. It's crazy. The amount of downloads, the amount of consumable information out there. It's a lot. It's a lot. You know, it's a lot. And hopefully everybody understands that when I put this information out there, we put this information out there about marketing and about things that we see, and I have these industry people on, and I have folks talking about it. I'm trying to give you the most insight I can into this space, and trying to give you guys kind of a background, a play-by-play on what we see out there and kind of how we see the market developing and how we see it growing and how we see it stagnating. Years ago, I talked about fitness, and I talked about fitness in the firearms industry, and people thought I was crazy. People thought I was crazy. Magazine ban. Yeah, that won't go through. The magazine ban won't go through. That won't pass. That won't even make it out of the Senate. But, you know, when I give you guys this insight, you know, I've done it in the past. My son was dicking around on Xbox YouTube watching this banana head stream live. I didn't think anything of it until it had 15 million subscribers. Yeah. And I looked at an account. One of my guys who's helping me with my web stuff, he showed me an account. It started 2 months ago. And the guy interviews all kinds of people. And it had 1.2 million subscribers in 2 months. 1.2 million subscribers in 2 months. 1.2 million don't watch the Montana news. 1.2 million subscribers in 2 months. And if y'all don't believe it's possible, I guess, I'll give you the link. Go check it out. There's a child who opens toys on camera and has over 1 million subs. I believe it. 100%. 100%. We're in a different time. What's up, Barbell? We're in a totally different time. We're in a totally different genre. We're in a totally different space. And people who don't understand that or don't get it, or companies, they're going to lose. You have to understand we're in a whole different headspace. If you head over to YouTube, tap the thumbs up, at least, Barbell. Give it, try to head over there. I'm on there now. YouTube would be awesome. So the page I'm talking about on YouTube that has gotten 1.2 million subscribers in 2 months is called Impulsive. I'm going to put the link on YouTube. My kids like to watch other kids on YouTube play games. Things are crazy these days. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different world. Yeah, I'm going to put the link. They have 1.2 million subscribers. They started their YouTube 2 months ago. I'm going to put this in YouTube so people can go look at it if they think I'm nuts. There it is. So check it out. If you head over to my YouTube, right now you'll see that link. And if you get a chance while you're there, tap thumbs up, give it a share, help me out. I don't know if it's one of the Pauls, but it's called Impulsive, and it's got 1.2 million subscribers. You know, my guy showed it to me, and it's crazy. It's just crazy. Like, don't you want to play the games you sit there with? They're getting people recording themselves to do nothing, bro. It's true. But what you have to do is you have to look at the changing landscape. It's changing. The landscape is changing. It's changed. Yeah, Logan Paul. It's changed. And I know he was famous before, but he started the page 2 months ago. 2 months. But it's changing fast. It's changing really quick. My niece watches, kind of surprised that he's being open. The amount of views of the video blows my mind. It blows my mind too. But I hope everybody understands that, you know, I love studying this stuff. I love that it's going on. It's really cool to see. And I'm trying different formats, and I'm trying formats like this to grow. Yeah, it was tragic. Different ways to proliferate. And I do this to develop data and to find data. And I think it's grossly misunderstood, and people don't understand where it's going. And for the most part, you know, according to all the stuff I study, it's all going to be online. In 5 years, it's going to be a whole different space. Jake Paul is another one. I don't know why kids like him. He's the farthest thing from what was cool to us. He's a massive tool, but people really like him. Yeah, that'll go on forever. That'll go on forever. People will forever think there'll always be massive tools out there. That somehow get air cover, or somehow end up with, you know, a level of whatever you want to call it, fame or perceived fame, or whatever you want to call it. There's always going to be that. That's it. What's up, Argentina? There's always going to be that. Can't put a finger on it. I can't figure it out. I haven't. I don't have the answer to it, guys. You know, I'm with you. Sometimes I shake my head at some of the stuff. I've shaken my head at things in the firearms business that I see that people like, they think it's cool. And I'm like, that's not cool. You know, or, you know, there's only so many incarnations I can live through. And I talked about this last night. It's very hard. This was if you remember MySpace, this was the death of MySpace. Kind of like once you went to a few pages, you've kind of seen them all. And similar with that, we see Instagram now. You know, everybody has 5 pages, and everybody's like in an identity crisis, and people don't use their real names, and people just create pages, and they're just putting stuff up, and everybody's looking for attention. It's like there's this pie of attention, and everybody wants the biggest sliver of the pie. They don't want anyone else to have a piece of the pie. They want the whole pie. And it's creating a almost like a failure philosophy and really a dangerous mentality, because they're chasing like a false sense of satisfaction. Now, Suresh brought this up last night. He said you can't pay your rent on likes. You can't pay your bills with likes. And he's absolutely right. Too many people are fixated on this false sense of attention, and I'm going to get my attention here, and I'm going to put this up, and I'm going to, people are going to like me, and people are going to follow me. And it's such a bad philosophy. It's setting yourself up for monumental disappointment. All these social media platforms are tools. You use them as a business tool, but don't become one of the tools. Don't become one of the tools out there. I don't think the industry needs more shoot fast guys. I don't think it needs more tacked out guys. I don't think it needs, 47 people trying to mimic the same thing. So Suresh was on point. So many people would rather have 1 million likes rather than $1 million. I think there's some truth to that. Semi-auto kid, I think there's some truth to that. You see it. You see it with a lot of the pages, and it's a bad measure. I think you should want to, have some quality stuff out there. I think you should want to market yourself, but there's just people out there just, chasing it. And they're chasing it. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But I think people are going to get bored with it. I think they're going to see several incarnations, and people are going to get bored with it. And at some point or another, people are going to tune into different things, and we're seeing it already. We're seeing people move over to different platforms. We're seeing people look at different platforms, and we're seeing people look at different space. And they're going into different spaces. We'll see. But it was it was very, there's a lot of things that come to mind from that conversation. A lot of things. A lot of things come into mind. Likes, attention mean everything to some people. We all want to be noticed, some more than others. I always say this to everybody, when I've worked booths in the past and I've run companies, everybody's somebody, just ask them. They'll tell you. Everybody's important. Everybody's busy. Everybody's somebody, right? And we are. We're all busy. We all have things going on. But I think that you have to maintain perspective. And I think people fail to maintain perspective. I think what makes that dangerous, that path that people go down, is the perception of, you have what I want, so I'm going to try to take it from you at all costs, or you have a bigger piece of the pie, I want to hurt you so you can get a bigger piece of so I can get a bigger piece of the pie. I want to take something from you, or I want to, piggyback. And I think it's just it's a little effed up. I think people, need to get back to a little bit of that face to face. That's why I've grown to love this medium, where you come on here, you talk it out, you have the conversations, you talk to people, and it's real. You can't hide. There's no hiding here. And I've enjoyed it. And trying to put up as much content as I can for you guys, and put as much out there as I can, and let you guys get a peek into some of the relationships. Try to tap some hearts and invite people in. And if you head over to YouTube, tap thumbs up and share. Yeah, I think everybody, I think texting was kind of the first precursor. I think texting was the first informal way to do business, if you will. And it's one of those deals. Well, I can send a text. Send a text. Send a text. It's easier to send a text. So, I'll send a text. And, texting has its convenience. But I also think that there's so many people out there that have lost so much perspective, and it's a tear down mentality, and you got to get away from those people, those pages, those influences. You got to be careful. I've pared down what I follow and what I pay attention to a ton. Social media is a place where you can be, you want to be. You want to be a shooter, no problem. You want to be the coolest guy on the planet, no problem. Anything's possible here. That's right. It's the first step, Semi-Auto Kid, into that almost virtual reality. It's almost that virtual reality, of media. So we're in a really unique space. People can be whatever they want. They can create whatever type of reality they want to create. I get a kick out of the motherfuckers that turn this shit off, or they leave the photo shoot, or they do whatever, and they're like, totally different person. That shit's rampant. But yeah. I think you're absolutely right, Semi-Auto Kid. I think you nailed it. Social media is a place where you can be whatever you want to be. And you can create whatever reality you want to create. You want to be an astronaut? Be an astronaut. You can create that reality. But Cassie, you've seen it. You've seen it firsthand. You've seen it. You've seen people just for attention. They'll light themselves on fire. They'll shoot themselves in the face with a paintball. You've seen it. You've lived it. And you have to decide, do you want to watch acting? Or do you want to talk in real space? That's what you got to do. I think so many people love it, Semi-Auto Kid, because they're searching for some level of fulfillment. Maybe they weren't hugged enough by mommy or daddy. Maybe they weren't coddled enough. I tell people all the time when they ask me why I started social media, how I got into it, I said I was just trying to catalog my life. I was trying to, I was traveling, I was doing all these things, and I was trying to catalog my life. Oh my God, yes, I've seen it. It's sad how someone's life to pretend to be who they are not. It's absolutely true. And maybe they didn't get their ass kicked enough. But I do know this. GLVP 727. I know this. A lot of the people on social media that always have a lot to say, they're the same people you see in real life at the shows, and they walk right by you. They walk right by you. They walk right by you. They walk right by you at the shows. They don't say a word. But on social media, they're somebody. It's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. I'm not hard to find. I'm 5'11". I'm 245 on a bad day. I'm not hard to find. Not hard to find. I'm easy to find. But it's funny. I'm going to sign off here because it's going to kick me off, and I'm going to come back on. When I come back on, we'll get to the giveaway, and we'll get to a few things, a couple other points, and take some questions. All right. We're back. Let's see. So we started to touch on a lot of points. What's up, Caldy? Got to get you on, Caldy, sometime. You got to come on. You're going to be willing to come on. But hopefully everybody understands what I'm saying. And if you tap hearts and invite people in, you know, that'd be great. But they're all barking dog behind the glass door. As soon as the door opens, they come in and run. It's not so much that they run. I think it's more, Caldy, that they live in a weird headspace that's not reality. And all of this is just propaganda, and whatever they can create for propaganda, whatever they can create for a narrative, they're okay with that here. In real life, I guess they don't love themselves in real life. Or they don't love, because if you stand by who you are, and you stand by what your message is, and you stand by, you're going to carry that message in real life too. There's people I think you've had problems with, and we've all had problems with people, and maybe it starts online, but I always had more respect for people that picked up the phone or said it to someone's face. But that's a whole different conversation. But for the most part, I agree with Semi-Auto Kid when he says that people can be whatever they want. And I think in being whatever they want, they've created a virtual reality. And in their own virtual reality, they can be whatever they want to be. And they can say whatever they want to say, and there's no consequence and there's no repercussion. So that's where they're at. So it's interesting. It's interesting. I think it's a little bit of a mental mind fuck that they walk through, and they should have more basic social interactions in life, and maybe there's something lacking in their home life. Maybe there's something lacking in their day-to-day life. Maybe they're missing something. I don't know. I'm not here to figure out the woes of everybody else. I think a lot of it has to do with a me mentality where they feel like something's not getting satisfied, or somebody took something from them, so they have to take something from somebody else. I think that has a lot to do with it. That has a lot to do with it. So it's strange. Aside from that, marketing, brand development, changes in the marketing space, changes in the ecosystem of marketing, that's going to continue to happen. It's going to keep happening. It's going to keep evolving. It's going to keep changing. And hopefully everybody understands, what that's all about. And how important it is to continue to evolve. We're talking about social media. They can segregate themselves. It's true. They can segregate themselves. They can separate themselves from the pack and be whatever they want to be. Interesting. Well, we've conquered so many things in the last 24, 48 hours with all this. Especially last night into today. We've covered so much. it's super eye-opening. And anybody who listened to the last episode and bled into this episode, and I want to get to a couple questions. I want to get into some of the questions. You know, it's awesome. Yeah, so many things do happen on social media, and so many things happen, you know, that it's really become especially on Instagram. Instagram's a very strange melting pot. Because as we said earlier, people can be whatever they want. You can't. You know, you have to keep your circle tight anyway. If you're talking about circles, you have to keep your circle tight anyway. Your circle should be tight, not just, you know, privately, but also publicly. I've learned that the hard way many times. Many, many, many times. The more you let people in, the more you invite people into your circle, the more risk you take to absorb whatever bullshit they have going on. But also, you know, you're going to find out who's going to be there for you through certain things that you maybe go through or certain evolutions that you go through. So keeping your circle tight goes every which way. You know, I think people dance between that reality that they are in social media, and then they try to balance it with real life. And unfortunately, somewhere in the middle comes the reality of people you can trust and media you can trust and things you can read. Make no mistake, there is fake news. Make no mistake, there is fake media. It's a very loaded question. So, that is what it is. As far as, you know, asking the right questions, the right question should be, you know, trust should be something that somebody earns over a period of time after developing a strong relationship and a strong foundation. And when you develop that strong foundation, and you have that foundation of friendship, and you have that foundation of trust, and you've developed that, you will develop a good understanding of where people are and whether or not they can accept people in. And it's the same with media we absorb. It's the same with everything else. The media that I think people are creating and what they're pushing out there, they're not fully understanding the challenge. The challenge is finding someone who can put up flaws. There's a lot of things. So when I look at even brands and companies, are they creating a genuine feel for the product? Are they conveying what the product does? And are they conveying what that product means to them? That's the thing. That's the thing. So you have to kind of start to pick it apart and become an educated consumer. But whether it's a person or a company, you have to understand they have to create something that's believable. And the only way to do that is to get a visual, get a feeling for the person behind it and whether or not it's real. You know, it kind of is what it is. Bonnie, I don't have the answers. I'm not the guy to talk to about that stuff. Caldy may. But I really enjoyed the conversation last night. So much good stuff. I picked on a lot of people. There was so much good stuff. It must be your phone. Can everyone else hear? So, a lot of good stuff was covered last night. Most of the embellishments people make on other accounts, I would think some part of it is true. How else could you remember all those lies? I think there's always a little bit of truth. I think there's always a shred of truth in some things. But more often than not, Caldy, you'll find people take an inch and make it a mile. And people take a foot and make it a yard. I think there's always a stretching. you know? So it kind of is what it is. Do not be looking for a relationship on IG, Bonnie. You're in the wrong place. Don't. But for the most part, I hope that last night opened up a lot of eyes and got a lot of understanding. I mean, it was amazing to have Bravo Concealment on, 221B Tactical on, and get the input from other companies, and get that insight. And I had a lot of conversations with companies today. A lot of conversations. And I stand by what I said, and I got a few DMs about it. Mark my words. Vortex will supplant Leupold and a lot of other optics providers. I had an interesting conversation with a head of a company last night, and he said to me, he goes, John, I was sitting at a buyer's show, and no problem, Bonnie. I was sitting at a buyer's show, and NC Star, everybody knows the optics company NC Star. They're like the lowest rung of optics. And they were writing orders like they were going out of style. They were writing orders like they were going out of style. And I'm getting like heckled on YouTube, I think. I got a heckler on YouTube. Caldy, head over to YouTube, handle my heckler. And why were they writing orders like they were going out of style? Because people want to purchase a product that's available now, that's inexpensive, that has a warranty, that they can get their hands on and afford immediately. And the marketing's there. It's recognizable. And you just see companies not understanding and not buying in and not getting it. And those companies that are going out and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on video media and shows, I'm sure a lot of them would like to have that money back. A lot of them like to have that money back. Insane. Insane. Any questions about last night? Any questions about some of those topics? We had the ab chick on. She was kind enough to stop in and talk a little fitness. We talked a lot of YouTube. We talked a lot about podcasting. We answered a lot of questions about podcasting. I showed you guys a lot of analytics. Yeah, I mean, GLVP 727, it's interesting. I have these high-level conversations with companies. I talk to them, and, they get it. But some are just so far behind. They're so far behind the 8 ball that they're just figuring out Instagram. They're just figuring, I talked about this earlier, they're just starting to figure it out. And they're behind. They're way behind. What's up? What's up, Jordan? Jordan's thoughts would be good on this. Jordan, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So we had a really good talk last night. We had Bravo Concealment on. We had Suresh from 221B Tactical on. We were talking about this. And we were talking about social media presence. Your input would be awesome on this if you want to chime in. On how companies have kind of failed at social media and where they failed, and the failure to understand that, like, you go to YouTube, for example, and companies like Vortex are killing it in that space. And companies like Leupold can't figure it out. What is it? Why? Why are certain companies figuring it out, and why aren't they? Why are guys like you figuring it out and certain people can't? What's the reason? And this caused a whole shitstorm last night. A whole shitstorm. I'd love to get your opinion on it. Get your input. I'd love to hear you out. See if I can get Jordan to chime in. I'd love to get his input. Oh, he must be busy. It's all about the algorithm, some people say. Yeah, it's all about the algorithm. Because companies are stuck in the old way of marketing. They don't want to move. Oh, come on. You're sick. Your thoughts would be really good on this. Renee went off last night from Bravo. And Suresh went off last night. But I'd love to have your input. You're one of the wizards out there. You know, I'd love to get your input. I think it's all about the algorithm, like, you know, but it's about the content. Now, Jordan, we did this. I said something bold. I said companies like Vortex, they're going to supplant and pass companies like Leupold. They're going to supplant and pass companies like Leupold. And the reason is they're just winning the war on so many different fronts, in so many different spaces. And I think in the end, winning that battle on multiple fronts is going to pay off. Watering all that different grass is going to pay off. You can't do it anymore just on Instagram. You can't do it anymore like the old way, like you're saying, that old way of doing things, that old mentality. I know you get it, but it came up last night and it went off like a shitstorm last night. Yeah, it's all about the content. They aren't consistent on social media. They don't give their time to hire people to give them their customers and their support. Yeah, it's crazy to me. I sit with companies, Jordan, we've had this talk. I sit with companies and I say, what is your largest base to speak to? Where is your biggest base? And they'll say, oh, we have, you know, X amount of followers on this, on Instagram. You know, we have 200,000 followers on Instagram. Well, who runs your Instagram? And they'll say, oh, we have a guy, and they pay the person the least that speaks to their largest audience. Now tell me on what planet that makes sense. On what planet does that make sense? And why does that make sense? You know, you're one of the guys, Jordan, you should be a social media director somewhere. I've said it. Why have you figured it out and those they can't? Why? And why isn't that being talked about? You know, and I look at it and I just shake my head. I'm like, makes no sense. It makes no sense on any level to me. You know, I just, you know, I can't even wrap my head around it. It's a good point. They don't give the time. They don't hire the people to give time to their customers and supporters. But I see companies that do it. It doesn't unless the person has a passion for it, but then they're getting paid the least. Most of the time they're going to put the least amount of effort into it. Agreed. Another question on YouTube, trying to answer everybody. If you get on top of the algorithm, you can take the final stance after the algorithm fails and you have shut down, you have an invested interest to come out on top. Yeah, I mean, you have to be on top of the algorithms. The algorithms are always changing. You know, you have to stay on top of it. But yeah, no, Jordan's absolutely right. Jordan, you're 100% correct. Yeah, I'm not down for anyone running my IG. I understand in massive companies, it may get too much for one to handle. But for me now, I'm the one-man army. You want a job done right, you got to do it. Yeah, but I think you get what you pay for. Do you know how many companies Jordan and I have talked to? Jordan will attest to this. We sit with these companies, and these are multi-million-dollar companies, and you know what they say? Oh, my wife runs it, or oh, my niece runs it.